Mswatu inkosi ithula akayithathe akahambe nayo akayithathe yotenza bakhe wone
Good afternoon to you. It's 2 p.m. on the dot. You're watching Market View. This is the Monday edition. Thank you so much for choosing us, and we hope that you've enjoyed your Easter holidays and that you may be recharged for this new week that has officially commenced. My name is Fiso Ngumalo. Happy to host you here. On the show today, we spotlight the Cane Growers Association. After they have faced a lot of headwinds, they want to look at some of the tailwinds that they can leverage after closing off their financial year this 31st of March, and they've begun their new financial year this 1st of April, ending the cycle on the 31st of April again next year, 2027. We'll speak to the Chief Executive, Dr. Sipho Nkambule, just to really understand how they've been able to adapt as well as to navigate all these rising costs. We take you into that conversation a little bit later on the program, but for now, let's look at our business news. Top of the top, the Royal Signature Expo 2026, a landmark global prestige and national mastery event that will be hosted as part of the national commemoration that is marking 40 years of His Majesty King Eswatini III's esteemed leadership. The manager for external trade at the Eswatini Investment Promotion Authority, Sibusiso Mnisi, shares insight into the exciting lineup of activities that are all scheduled across the 3 days of the expo, taking place from the 25th to the 27th of this month, with each day curated to deliver unique experiences, strategic engagements, and showcase opportunities for both local and international stakeholders. Let's listen.
We are going to bring in global brands and also matching them with local brands that have been selected by APA. This is a different exhibition. It's a premium event, so we're looking at high-end brands in luxury cars, in fashion, in jewelry, and all of those sectors to be exhibited. The whole idea is to demonstrate what the ICC is all about, and also to align in terms of what it will be exhibiting or hosting, going forward. Singasho nje ukuthi to 2026 will be the first edition, and hopefully we are going to have other editions in 2027 of the Royal Signature Expo. So the event is on the 25th, 26th and 27th of April. 25th of April, we will be having the official opening of the ICC, and there we are going to have restricted entry only by invitation to our visitors. But on the 26th, 27th, then it's open to the general public, but you'll have to pay an amount of 400 temalangeni.
Well, despite the critical role standards play in driving external trade, only about 16 local companies are currently compliant. Following a recent seminar aimed at sensitizing businesses, the Eswatini Standards Authority's Executive Director, Ngamiso Mhlanga, says the low uptake is due to standards remaining voluntary.
We are not seeing a lot in terms of companies that have actually adopted the quality marks that SWASA have. I think when we look into, we'll say, larger entities, but not that very large, that have been certified by SWASA, around 10 in the entire whole country. So you can tell that people are not moving very fast into issues of adopting issues of standards and certification. reasons being, most of those companies are not selling outside the country. They are selling within the market of Eswatini, where it is not, it is voluntary whether you want to get your product tested. So we see those kind of trends that people understand that they need to access standards. So you find that people do come to SWASA to make inquiry in terms of standards. However, you find that their ability to get certified is low. Most of the companies do desire to get certified, but the cost of certification is high. Not because SWASA is charging a lot of money, but the nature of the business is high because, firstly, the product must be tested. The tested for nutritional values, tested also for just the quality of the product in itself. So you find that Eswatini doesn't have local laboratories that could provide such services. Therefore, you find that we have, as SWASA, have to use external laboratory services from other countries, such as South Africa. Sometimes we go as far as Kenya to get those laboratories that could actually test certain products in terms of what we want.
All right, from that to our ad break now, we'll be back with Mr. Sibia, Dr. Sipho Ngambule, I beg your pardon, as we look at the Cane Growers Association's previous financial year, as well as we focused how they will navigate the rising costs, as well as adapt into all those global pressures, as well as local strategies. After the break, stay with us.
akayithathe akahambe nayo
labo labasebuhlungwini abakhohlwe ngitotonke le tinto temhlaba
Those that are in pain must forget all the problems
ngoba
they have.
kuthi answer la kule tinto temhlaba
Because the things of the earth have got no answer.
answer la ikhona khona
But the answer that we have
ikulona losetule
is
emazulwini
all morning.
nangishumayela nini ngisuke ngishumayela kwananami
When I'm preaching here, I'm preaching to
I
myself.
receive umoya longcwele
I receive the Holy Spirit.
I declare ukuthi a turnaround is coming my way
Memetela ukuthi a turnaround is coming in my life.
inkosi ithula akayithathe akahambe nayo
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Happy Easters once again. We know that we are wrapping those up. We get into a very serious conversation, one that sits at the very cornerstone of our economy in the Kingdom of Eswatini. I'm sure you've heard that we have a commodity that is called Swazi Gold. And yes, indeed, sugar remains a cornerstone of the country's economy, and it contributes more than 5% to the gross domestic product. And at the center of this success are cane growers who continue to drive momentum in this thriving industry. Now, as fuel and electricity prices recently increased, attention now turns to how the industry is adapting to these changes while also maintaining productivity and growth. The Chief Executive of the Association, Dr. Sipho Ngambule, joins us in studio, and he shares his insights on how these developments are shaping operations and the measures that are being taken to sustain progress within the sector. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time, Doctor. Really appreciate you coming over to the show. It's quite interesting. You've just wrapped up your financial year on the 31st of March, and that essentially means you begin your new one on the 1st of April until next year again, the 31st of March. Maybe let's just start with a brief overview. And you'll give us your focus here. How has it been like operating?
Good afternoon, Mr. Ngumalo. Thank you for having me in the studio, and greetings to your viewers as well, especially Eswatini cane growers around the country. Starting with the overview of the past year, I think I can say that the past year the production was flat year on year. And the main focus last year was on the price. We started the year expecting a certain sugar price, but then things happened in the markets such that the sugar price ended up about 8% down year on year. And that 8% represents about 200 million emalangeni drop in the revenue received by the growers that I represent. The growers that I represent are the independent growers of sugarcane who grow in about 30,000 hectares. So the main player was the price, which was not very fantastic in spite of the flat production.
I mean, 8%, and that's equivalent to a ballpark estimate of around 200 million malangeni. I mean, that's quite significant. What do you attribute that, 8% drop to?
It's a combination of factors. Sugar is a commodity, which means supply and demand dictate the price. We are price takers.
Right.
The price in the world went down quite significantly from about 22 cents to about 14 cents per pound of sugar. That means there is available sugar outside the SACU market where we sell most of our sugar. So consumers were able to buy sugar from outside and fill in the silos in SACU. So for us to make sure that our product moves, we had to give discounts. And those discounts are actually what dropped the price. The discounts are given to actually compete with the cheaper product from outside the SACU.
Because otherwise you're doomed.
Otherwise our silos will be full and then we have to stop producing. That was the main player in the price.
Yeah, so I see those forces and how they can be demanding and they can hurt you. I do want to understand just briefly, because you do mention that you sell mostly to an export market, so to speak, the SACU region. If you were to give us your market share in terms of what you have and outside of Eswatini and locally, how would you put those numbers?
The amount that is consumed locally is surprisingly small. It's actually less than 10% of the about 700,000 tons that we produce. And then when we combine the SACU market, which we treat as local because it's a common market, then we sell about 61% in that market. And then the rest of the sugar goes to countries like the USA, where we've got a preferential price, and then some goes to the EU, and a lot of it, a bit of it goes to the world market, where the price is quite low.
When we look at the situation here at home, because you did say it's surprisingly very low, very small, right? Is that because locals are buying products that are not local, or how would you define the situation here at home?
It all boils down to the size of the population at home.
Okay.
As you may know, we are just 1.2 million people, and about 700,000 tons is a lot of sugar. So the amount that is consumed locally is proportional to the population.
That's fair, because there's a lot of conversations around let's buy local products, and I think the Prime Minister just spoke about a mindset change recently. He's been quite emphatic about that ethos, and he did make the example that when you see a local product next to a foreign product in the shop, your first instinct should be buying the local product. So I'm glad that with sugar in particular, with that commodity, the price is relevant to the population and it's proportional to our population. Maybe let's talk briefly about the new year now and what you foresee.
The new year is another interesting year. Let me start with the production. Looking at all the factors, it's a bit early to be accurate about the production performance, but we do have preliminary estimates. I did say to you that last year was flat year on year, and we also expect that the production will be practically flat year on year, so there will be no decrease. But I must say there is room for improved production. Now, the major issue is going to be input price and availability. It's common knowledge now that electricity increased by 11.74% year on year, which is almost 4 times inflation. And that kicked in on the 1st of April. And then, as if that is not enough, the price of diesel in particular, which we use a lot of, went up by 5.35 cents per liter.
Could have been worse, yes.
And it could have been worse. I'll come to that, actually. It could have been a lot worse. And if that 5.35 cents per liter works out to about 27% increase. Now, energy, which is fuel, petroleum, diesel in particular, and electricity, they account for more than 50% of our production price. In fact, with these increases, it is approaching 60%. So these two increases in the critical inputs are going to be the area of focus. We have done some preliminary calculations that those increases that I have spoken about actually will push up our production costs by 11% per hectare. And that 11% increase in costs is going to eat into our margin. So we do expect that our margin is going to go down by about 26% this coming year. So it's not going to be an exciting year. But while on that, I must take this opportunity to recognize the efforts that government is putting, especially in the energy space. When the electricity was supposed to increase by 13.61%, government intervened and put in 200 million to try and cushion that. That's the reason we ended up with 11.74%. And we have read in the media that government cushioned the diesel price by about 332 million. And one of the initiatives, efforts by government that is going to help us, the Minister of Natural Resources and Energy recently pronounced that they are setting aside a government that is 1.76 billion to improve or develop natural resources, inclusive of energy, diversified energy. So that, in a way, is part of the mitigating factors that are going to be helpful to us, actually improving the local generation of electricity, and more importantly, diversifying it towards renewable energy, which is favorable for the appetite of our markets.
Yeah. I want us to look at just how fuel as well as electricity is going to hurt you as you project what this financial year is going to look like, and perhaps look at it from a micro POV within the value chain, really, because I understand cane grow's value chain is quite broad. There's irrigation, there's transportation, there's there's processing as well. Where does it hurt you the most? Is it the entire value chain, or you can drill it down to something?
Since I'm representing sugarcane farmers, I think it's fair that I focus on the agriculture side of things. Let's take irrigation. All our sugarcane in this country depends on irrigation.
Yes.
And all that irrigation is dependent on electricity. So it is going to increase the cost of irrigating the cane, which we can't do without. And that is really where electricity is used as far as farming is concerned. Now, coming to diesel in particular, we use a lot of diesel to plow our fields. We use a lot of diesel to spray our fields to control pests and diseases. And we use a lot of diesel to hold the cane from the fields to the mill. And those are the things which are going to be affected. Now, maybe stepping back to the electricity, the biggest, and now what is happening around the world, which is driving the fuel price up, is also going to increase the fertilizer price, which is the third most important input in our production.
Yeah.
What happens again, if people can't afford the fertilizer, there is the temptation to say, let me ration the fertilizer that I have. It's even worse if the fertilizer supply is interrupted for different reasons. Therefore, people will try to grow the sugarcane without applying enough fertilizer. And we also hope that the diesel supply will not be significantly interrupted. In fact, we hope that the price that we saw on the 3rd was a spike. But if it goes on until the end of the year, then it will result on the cost increases that I've spoken about to you.
Yeah, I mean, I love the proverb that you submitting there, cutting your nose to spite your face, because those are some of the punitive and angry actions that people take, and then it hurts them going forward. I want us to look back at the mitigation strategies here. You do pronounce, some of the government interventions, which have been key and are going to be key because there are some others that they have pronounced that are coming into the future. What are some of innovations now that we can look at as cane growers or as governments that perhaps have not been a conversation? That when you look at other developed economies, these are some of the innovations and strategies they have been using to mitigate these pressures.
Thank you for that important question. I think, first of all, let me look inwards in terms of the growers that I'm representing.
For sure.
The yields that we are seeing right now achieved by growers are around 90 tons of cane per hectare. I know for a fact that it is possible and doable to increase these yields to close to 100. Now, why are the yields stuck at 90? Part of the reason that we have come to realize is that the management of the farms still leaves a lot of room for improvement. Right? Going back to the basics, irrigating when you are supposed to irrigate and putting the adequate amount of water and not skimping because of electricity and other things. And the other thing is putting the fertilizer when we are supposed to put it. Putting the amount of fertilizer that the crop needs and making sure that you control the diseases in time. Just being a foot soldier in the fields and seeing what is happening and what needs to be done. And then the other area which is important is for the growers themselves to look at other ways of mitigating the cost of energy and electricity in particular. There are new ways of generating electricity at micro scale. Some farmers have already done that. As I'm talking now, there is approximately 8 megawatts of solar electricity installed in the farm. So farmers should start thinking of complementing the grid by looking at what they can do at local level.
Right.
The key to that, there are two keys to that. Number one is an enabling environment for farmers to actually install these alternative energy in their fields to mitigate the cost. And the other things is to make available alternative revenue when they don't have use for the electricity that they are generating. I am relieved to say that as I'm sitting here, the energy regulator, in collaboration with government and other stakeholders, have made strides towards making sure that small-scale generators of electricity, independent small-scale generators of electricity, can sell electricity back into the grid for a nominal fee. Now, that introduces an alternative source of revenue while it mitigates the cost of producing the crop by reducing the amount of grid electricity that you are using.
Yeah, this is quite important submission there, because I mean you first, and you said it, I'm going to look inward first.
Yes.
And what you did there was you said let us be accountable as cane growers. There's you used the word, let's get back to the basics. And
Correct.
I like that. And that just means you cannot cheat any of these processes. You have to be on time. You have to be a foot soldier. You have to irrigate appropriately and efficiently. I really appreciate that. But then you also submit a very critical part, which is policy and stakeholder support. Very essential. But I do want to ask you on that point that, do you feel like what is being done there is enough, or there are gaps that still need urgent attention?
To start with, I'm informed that close to 80% of the electricity that we use here comes from across the border, from Mozambique, South Africa, and a bit from other SADC countries. Most of that electricity, unfortunately, without criticizing anyone, is from fuel sources, from coal. And it's important to look at a better mix of electricity, and then that will address the supply and to a large extent the price. And going back to the ability of creating an enabling environment, and that is policy, that is going to inherently encourage independent producers of electricity to invest in it. Now, I'm excited about the direction government is taking, putting 1.76 billion into developing natural resources and energy. I'm not saying that all of that is going to go to energy, but what it says to me is that government is going to improve the capacity in collaboration with other stakeholders to produce locally, so that the price of electricity is not just driven by the supplier of the bulk of it. Now, the other thing that I can say is that we have to use what we have.
I like that.
To produce what we need. Let me start off with sugarcane. Produces sugar. It produces other things, but there's one key product that comes of sugarcane grown by the farmers. There's the fiber that is left after extracting the sugar. That fiber can be used to produce more electricity through a process called cogeneration in the mill.
And that is something that is not being explored yet.
It is explored, but up to now, most of it was being produced just to supply energy inside the mill. But we need to get into technology which is going to look at producing more than what the mill needs. And we are lucky that the Sugar Act and the sugar industry agreement that we have measures in place to say once we have used this bagasse, the fiber I'm talking about, then millers and growers are going to share the proceeds from that energy in an equitable way. I'm convinced that if we were to co-generate more and supply more energy into the grid, then we would be diversifying the revenue streams for everybody, the mills and the growers. And that is good for the sustainability of all.
Mr. Dr. Ngambule, appreciate your time, appreciate the insight.